Hi, this is a very short module that I'm trying to present what you can do. A certain basic steps with an MS Excel spreadsheet and some of the analysis that you can start to look at, or how to set up the data for some of the very basic analysis that you do. Now, as you can see, this is the raw data sheet that I have, and you can see that I have the entries as categorical variables: urban, local, rural, then spontaneous, IVF, Paris, nulliparous, no, yes, normal, oligo, hydramnios, polyhydramnios. Then we have got certain categories for the EFWs, and then we have got certain numbers, and we have got no, yes here as well. So what we will do in the first stage is that we won't do the analysis in the spreadsheet that has the raw data. So I have created another spreadsheet here. I named it analyze, and I copied this data there, and this is how it is. And then what I did further is that I changed all of these categorical ones into numerical ones. So what I did is that I essentially coded the categories: urban, rural, spontaneous, IVF, all this I've coded, and then I have now converted them into numbers. So all of these are now numerical variables. And this is something that you can do in an Excel spreadsheet as you try to look at some of the steps that you can do. And let's look at some of the very basic steps that we can do. And one is determining the count. Another thing that I have done is that I have sort of, you can see it's 7 here, and I've sort of frozen. I have frozen, not sort of. I have frozen the top row. And you can freeze the top row by coming to view on the top menu in the ribbon menu, and then coming to freeze panes, and then you can see freeze top row, freeze first column, unfreeze pane. So I have used the freeze top row to freeze the top row. And the advantage is that if I scroll down here, you can see me coming down 25, 30. The top row is still there. So doing the entry is easy because I can know what I'm entering in which column. So that's the advantage of it. And I've converted everything, I've coded everything into a numerical one. Now this one I have missed, and let me just convert this into a number. Yes, so now we have everything as a number. Now I'll show you some of the very basic things that we can do. And you can see the effects here. That's a function, insert function. That's the one that we use usually to do most of this. It gives us the route map to the commands that we want to use. And let's say I want to see how much data is, or what's the count, and say I want to find the count of the subjects that are there. So one way to do it is to say that I'm starting with 2, and then coming down here and then saying, well, there's 25. I have a study ID, so I can count. Now let's say there are some missing data in between. So study ID, just look at study ID doesn't help. We can look at the count here, and we can see how we can do that. So we insert the equal sign, come to function. So you now see here the function box, and you can click what you want, type in what you want. So I want to look for count. You go for count. I choose, you get a whole set of functions around count, and I'm choosing count. It counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So now I click that, and now I've got a new box which tells me how much what's the count of the variables, that's there. And you can see here it's B2 is to B27. Now this is B2, and it's coming till B27. I can change that. The B27 is empty. So usually it takes just the one till the one just above it. So I changed that to B26. This is B26. Okay, I'm doing it till there. And then I say, okay, let me see how much. It gives you the answer right here. It's 25. So we have 25. And we know we have 25 study IDs. So there are 25 subjects in the study. So it's one way of finding out the count. If you have unfortunately not put in the study ID, it's one way to find out the count. Now you have to be careful to see whether it counts 0 or a missing value. So those things you have to be careful as you are doing it. Now, everything which is automated has its own limitations. So just accepting it without cross-checking, not allowed. So make sure that you cross-check. Now let's say that I want to further expand on the count and I want to say, well, how many, let's look at parity. It's coded as 1 and 0. How many of them are 1 and how many of them are 0? So let's just do that here. I come here, clicking count. Now what I want here is not just a single count. I'm saying count if it is 1. So I look for that and I say that, well, here it is, count if IF. There is one which is count ifs IFS. We look at that later. For now, I'm saying I'm looking at count if. And it says it counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. I click OK. And I get the range. So I can choose the range. Let's say it is, what did I choose? Parity. So parity is F, F2 is to F26. That will choose all. Now, what you have to be careful is that as you're coming down here, you have to make sure that all the cells are covered. So you can see here that earlier it was F3 because when we move down, then we missed that. So that we have to be sure that we are making sure that all the range includes everything that we want to include. So go back and check that. And criteria. I have 1 and 0. So I want to say how many are 1. So I put 1 in the criteria. Now I get 20 ones. Let's change it and see. 0. I get 5. So again, I'm just putting 1, 20. So now we see that, well, parity 1, there are 20. Parity 0, there are 5. So you can start creating this here. I can just write it. If I want, I can put it here as a separate table. Parity equals 1. And I put the number as 20. I say parity equals 0. Parity equals 0. I can put the number as 5. So I can start creating my tables by using the count ifs. And this count if is a useful thing when we want to do a cross table. So I can say, okay, I'm getting the, it's a small spelling mistake. I hope you don't mind. Okay. So I'm getting these numbers set. So we have looked at count. We have looked at count if. Let's look at the next command that's commonly used associated with count. And that is if I want to look at, let's say, location 1, 0. That's urban rural. I want to look at location 1 and parity 1. So I'm saying I want location 1 and parity 1. So now I'm doing it this side. Okay. So now let's see what we want. We want location must be 1. We want parity must be 1. And we want the count of that. So we go to the function. We look for count ifs, IFS, count IFS. And my first criteria is location. Location is C. So I say C2 is to C26. I say it must be 1. Criteria 2, that is parity. F2 is to F26 is 1. And now I've got the count here, 8. So location is 1. Let's say that's urban. Parity is 1. Let's say that's multipares. We have 8 subjects. So you can see how you can get the counts expanding into with an if factor. If C is 1, if F is 1, and we can add more. If F is 1 and if H is 1, and we want those numbers. So we can add more also. So the count ifs help with that. And you can see that you can see the formula coming in here. And as you grow more comfortable, you'll be able to just type that in and keep adding more here so that you get what you want. Let's say, for example, I'm adding now, I want to look at neonatal mortality 1 also. So I say it is O2 is to O26, and I'm following the same way. 1. So now it's included that, right? And I press enter. Now it's changed to 2 because it's included the ones that have neonatal mortality as well. Let me change the neonatal mortality to 0. The number changes. Okay, so we had 8 earlier, and we see that 2 had neonatal mortality and 6 did not have neonatal. So it gives you the option of creating your table straight from the Excel sheet in a much simpler manner than sitting and counting each one of that. So that is the thing with count, countif, and count ifs, IFs. Let's look at the next common one that we do, and that is finding out the mean or the average. So let's say I will look at the mean birth weight. Function, that's equal sign. I type in, I want to look at mean. Click go, and then you get different kinds of means. Geometrical, geometric, trim the means, whatever. So let's say that we want to look at it as the average. Average returns the average arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, whatever it is. References that contain numbers. So we look at the average. And I am choosing O. So I make that change here. I'm choosing from O2 is to O26. Okay. But it's not O. O is neonatal mortality, right? So it is N. That is the birth weight. And now you can see you get the answer here straight away. 2695.56 is the mean. So that is the mean birth weight. Now when I do the mean, I want to also have the standard deviation. So I say standard deviation. Let's see if we can get the standard deviation. So again, come to function. Say that you want to look at standard deviation. Click go. And you've got different kinds of standard deviations coming. So let's say I'm looking at standard deviation of the sample of the population. I'm looking at standard deviation based on a sample. This is my sample. I'm looking at it based on a sample. Click on that. Now again, I get the same thing. And we looked at N2, N26, N2 colon N26. Okay. And now you can see that you've got the standard deviation. So you got the standard deviation. So now to estimate or determine the mean and standard deviation, it's very easily done in Excel. Quite easily done. So you've got the count, you've got the countif, you've got the count ifs, which is useful for you to start creating your tables. And you can create the cell counts for your 2x2 tables using the countif and countifs. You got the mean, you got the standard deviation. Most commonly done. Now let's come here to function and let's look what's here. We got the most recently used, or we can select a category. Let's look at what categories are there. You can see this is all. We've got financial, mathematical, trigonometric, statistical. Usually we'll look at statistical. And you've got a whole list of commands here or things that you can look at and just start playing around with it, including chi-square. You've got confidence intervals that are possible. You've got covariance that's possible. You've got correlations that's possible. Let's look at correlation. So correlate returns the correlation coefficient between two data sets. Let's look at that. And we clicked OK. And now we've got two arrays. And let's look in this data set. We can try to look at the correlation of estimated fetal weight and birth weight in grams. So that's J, estimated fetal weight, EFW. So I say J2 is to J26. And my second array is the birth weight. That is N2 is to N26. N2 to N26. And now we have got the answer here, 0.44. 0.438, 0.44. I can always format this cell to make it into 2 decimal points. I come to number, I choose number, I say 2 decimal points, and now I've got 0.44. Same thing here for the standard deviation. We don't need more than 2 decimal points. So I say 2 decimal points. Got that now. Again, because the mean birth weight is a number and I have not put in decimal points, I can add decimal points. I want 2 decimal points for birth weight also. So now you've got that. So you can format it appropriately. Now you've got the correlation part. So just some of the very basic ones that are there and commonly used ones. So you want to find the median. Let's look at go. So you can see here, you've got the median. Look at your range. I'm looking at the median birth weight. So I say I'm looking at N2 to N26. I got the median birth weight, 2800. Okay, so the function is where you can play around with it and look at it. Now, this is a very short module. It's not the do all and end all and everything that is done with Excel, but just a starting point where you can start looking at how you set up the data set to make it easier. So make sure that you have used a code book, you have coded everything as numericals, makes it very easier for you to obtain counts and things like that. Get the mean, get the standard deviation, get the median, can look at a correlation, you can look at developing cross tables quite easily because you're getting the counts quite easy. So, and once you have got that, then you can develop your cross tables, and then you can take out that information and go to other sets of freely available software like OpenAPI, or even MedCalc has got a free section, a free version that's free to use, where you can run a lot of tests like the chi-square test, looking at diagnostic effectiveness, looking at predictive value, sensitivity, likelihood ratios, Fisher's exact test, even comparing means. So all that can be done. You don't need a sophisticated statistical software like SPSS or even Stata or SAS or anything for that. You don't need to download or install anything. You can just work through the web browser for the very basic stuff that you need. Estimating percentages, counts, cells, chi-square, t-test, all those things. Okay. So this is a very, very, very basic introduction to this. Now I'll show you one more thing that you can do. And let me just insert a column here. It's not essentially to do with the statistical analysis, but let's say that I have height in meters and I have weight in kgs collected, and I want to look at the BMI. Now, instead of entering the BMI for each one, I can just say that, let's say that height in meters is 1.6. I'm just 0.7. Let me make sure that I formatted this as a number with, say, 2 decimal points. 1.60, 1.80, weight in kgs. Again, I'm formatting that as a number. I got 2 decimal points. Let's just say it is 65, 70, 60. Just. I want to do the BMI. I can just do equal, and let's say the BMI is weight by height in meters square. So I use the parenthesis, equal parenthesis. I click on 65, Q4, close the parenthesis, divided by parenthesis, P4 into, again, P4. Close the parenthesis. So I'm doing it as weight by height in meters square. And now I got the BMI. I can format this. So I'm making it as just 2 decimal points, right? And if I now drag it down, I get the BMI for all of this. Now let's just say that I drag it down further. Now you see strange symbols coming because there's no input here. And as I enter it, 1.5 and as a 56, the BMI is coming. 1.7, 67, 1.8, 54, 1.8, 73, 1.8, 82, 84. Okay, fine. So it automatically fills. So you can set it up earlier itself that once you input the data, you're automatically getting this filled. The thing you have to be careful is that you always cross-check. Now, don't just rely on the software and leave it to a software. Make sure that you're cross-checking at random to ensure that the entries are proper. So these are some of the very, very basic tools that we usually use to get started or jump start with our analysis. So you can use the countifs to start creating your 2x2 tables. You can find the mean, you can find the median, you can find the standard deviation, you can do a correlation. You can also use Excel to automate and automatically calculate things using formulas. And this is the formula bar. This is the formula bar that you have here. This part is a formula bar, and what you use for the various functions is the function, the fx. Click on that, type what you want here, click go and find it, or check here. And since we are looking mainly at statistical, we'll go into a statistical section to find out a lot of things. You can also estimate quartiles. You can also do a lot of stuff with this. So just play around with this now. Start getting comfortable with it. So I hope this has been useful. Start playing around with this. And as I said, when you want to go in for your analysis, take this information out. For a basic analysis, openfp.com is a good site to go, and they've got the very basic test there, and you can input this data from this, and you will get you can do the statistical significant testing, hypothesis and formal testing of hypothesis done. You can also go to MedCalc. It has got a paid version, a premium version. It's got a free version. The free version gives you the basic tests. You can run in quite easily the basic tests. Chi-square, Fisher's exact, diagnostic effectiveness, sensitivity, specificity, predictive values, likelihood ratios, odds ratios, t-test for means. All those things can be done. So you could run quite a bit of basic tests using Microsoft Excel and some of the freely available software. So have fun, stay safe, and I hope to see you soon.